So I've been sharing some best practices with you this week that you can implement as you are publishing content online. And the number one best practice I could share with you, the most important one, the one that it's like if you get nothing else from this month-long series I'm doing on content, this is the one I want you to walk away with. This is the most important. You need to craft the first line of your content. No matter what platform you're publishing on, no matter what you're writing about, that first line is the most important part of your content. And so you need to make sure you spend some time crafting an awesome first line. Because that first line is what is either going to grab people's attention or cause them to just keep scrolling and pass by your content. It also will either get them to read the second line of your content or decide that this is content they don't want to consume and again, go on by and go to the next piece of content. So that first line is the most important part of the content that you write. And you need to spend some time making sure that that first line is as perfect and as wonderful as you can make it, that it is attention grabbing, that it is concise, that it is something that people are going to want to consume. Now, I have done a video on the importance of crafting a first line already, and what I'm going to do is link that in the comments below so you can watch it if you want. But today what I want to do is give you some tips on how to make sure that first line is attention grabbing and that that first line is going to get people to read your content. And so the very first thing I'll say is your first line needs to be short. See, most people will not read large blocks of text. In fact, they've done a lot of research on it, and if a block of text is more than 2 sentences long, you're going to lose people. They don't have the attention span to read it. And so, especially online, you're going to want to make sure that first line really is 1 sentence long. And you're going to want to make sure that it doesn't continue on after the platform kind of shortens your text and kind of hides some of it so that your post doesn't show the entire screen. You know how they hide it a little bit and they show the read more button? You want to make sure your first line does not go beyond them shortening your post like that. Otherwise, it gets lost and people don't know what you're trying to say. So test it. Every platform is a little different in how many characters you get. So just see what goes beyond that little read more link and make sure that first line is short. Number 2, you want to make sure that first line is concise, that you're not just babbling on, that you're not making people have to read all the way to the second line before you get to your point. Make it short, make it concise. Really, you want that first line to give them an overview of what your whole post is about. So as they are scrolling through, they can see, is this content I want to consume? Is this something that I'm going to want to read all the way to the bottom? They're going to be able to tell usually by that first sentence, that first line. So make sure that first line is concise and shares what the entire post is about. You're going to want to make sure your first line has some keywords. So understanding your target market and what kind of content your target market tries to consume and looks for, you want to make sure that your first line includes at least 1 keyword that they are going to search for. So if you are writing about content and your target audience is looking for content on content, make sure the word content is in the first line or another keyword that they would search for when looking for tips on content. If it's branding, make sure that it has a word that includes branding in there or some keyword that they would search for when looking for content on branding. This is going to help that as they're scrolling through and they see these keywords that they normally would search for, when they see it in your content, it's going to cause them to stop. Tip number 4, if you plan to use emojis, here's my tip for you. If your first line cannot stand on its own without an emoji, adding an emoji is not going to make a bit of difference. See, people are going to read that first line, whether you include an emoji or not. And if that first line is crap, if it is horribly written, if it doesn't include keywords, if it is like 3 sentences long and just looks like a giant block of text, it doesn't matter how many emojis you put on there, people are not going to read it. Because if you write crap and you add an emoji, now you just have crap with an emoji on it. Make sure that first line can stand on its own. And if it can, then add an emoji. It just makes it all the more better. Tip number 5, write multiple versions of that first line. In fact, when I go to write content, especially for platforms like LinkedIn or Instagram, I probably come up with 5 different versions of the first line, a minimum of 5 different versions of the first line before I settle on what that first line will be. And I write it and I rewrite it and I tweak them and I see how could I combine these, what is the best in this in version number 1 and what is the best in version number 5, and is there a way to combine these to make it an even more awesome version number 6, and I play with the words and see what makes it sound better. And if you pre-plan your content, like if you're not the person that just writes your post and then hits publish and 5 minutes later and puts your content out there, if you have some time in advance, what I do is I will kind of A/B test that first line. I will use it in an email. I will send it to some people that I trust with, that they understand copywriting, and ask them, is this a good line to use? Like, is this something that you would want to read? I put it on other platforms that maybe I'm not going to share this specific content on and just see how it does. I A/B test it because I have the time, because I don't produce my content and then post it 5 minutes later. I usually have a week in advance, and so I'm able to A/B test this first line and make sure that it is the best possible version that it can be. Because again, that first line is the most important line of your content. And if you are not spending time crafting it, you are missing out on engagement, you are missing out on reactions, you are missing out on people reading your content and even connecting with you, because you are not spending time on the first line. So these 5 tips will hopefully help you to get better at crafting that first line. Now, what I've done is I've gone ahead and created a resource to help you walk through this process, and I've linked that in the comments below. But if you have any questions on crafting the first line, go ahead and leave those in the comments below or shoot me a message. And if you are a copywriter, if you're someone who spends a lot of time on your first line and crafting it and making it as good as you can be, please, if you have any other tips, leave them in the comments below. I would love to hear them and even grow in my ability to write that first line as well. And until tomorrow, when I have one more tip for you, I hope you all have a great day.